I can see the rate of infidelity in my wife. I can see the rate of infidelity above everyone's head. When the rate reaches 100%, the number of infidelities behind it is all there is. I was very careful and chose carefully, and finally found a beautiful and virtuous wife with a 0% infidelity rate. But one day, I suddenly noticed that her infidelity rate was skyrocketing. What would you do in the face of your wife about to cheat on you? Buy arsenic or buy a machete? 1. When I was about in junior high school, I could see a string of vivid numbers on everyone's head. I didn't know until the day my parents fought and divorced that the string of numbers represented the infidelity rate, and when the infidelity rate reached 100%, what appeared afterwards was the number of infidelities. Learning from the example of my parents, I vowed to find a beautiful and virtuous wife with a very low divorce rate on her head. Although this was difficult, the gods rewarded the diligent, and I did find her while I was in college, and her infidelity rate was surprisingly close to 0. Her name is Lu Shirhan, 2 years older than me, very pretty, and looks very pure. It's just that the family situation is a bit difficult, and she lives with her younger brother and mother. Her father was a gambler who ran away and left the family with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. But that's not a problem. Over the years, I've secretly made a lot of money by relying on my skill of being able to see the infidelity rate. Women with an infidelity rate of 0 are very rare. In order not to repeat my parents' mistakes, I had to hold on tight. I then launched a crazy pursuit of her, and even helped her pay off the debt. After we got married, she really was as virtuous and capable as she had always seemed, and she was always very gentle with me. Since my parents' divorce, I have once again experienced the happiness of a family. However, about a week ago, my gentle and virtuous wife's infidelity rate overnight went from 0.08% to 43%. I didn't really care about this at first, because sometimes when I watch short videos, seeing beautiful people can have an impact on the infidelity rate. For example, even after my best friend got married, when he saw videos or photos of beautiful women, his cheating rate would fluctuate slightly, usually between 30% and 50%. But gradually, I felt something was wrong, because the number on my wife's head was steadily increasing every day. In just 5 days, it had gone from 43% to 83%. This means that she will cheat on me with 17% infidelity rate. I couldn't sit still anymore, and I couldn't help but think about the scenes these days when LV Shirhan sneaks out in the middle of the night to call and message someone. She said it was her best friend, and she pretended to be calm to hide her panic. With a first impression of infinite 0% infidelity rate, I naively thought at the time that she was talking to her best friend about something embarrassing. I think it's more likely that she was chatting with some other young good-looking guy. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Over the years, I have worked hard and, at just 25 years old, I have taken the position of financial director of a financial company, and my prospects can be said to be unlimited. Not only have I bought a car and a house, I have even funded the overall renovation of her family home. I could not have been any nicer to her. I really can't figure out what kind of gigolo could have charmed her so much that she would consider betraying our marriage. After much thought, I decided to observe her further. After all, she is still my wife, and I still have deep feelings for her. As long as her infidelity rate does not exceed 100%, I can give her another chance. I came home from work on Friday. Lu Shirhan's face was flushed and troubled at times, and she was fidgeting, completely unlike her usual gentle and dignified appearance. Even when I came home, she looked like a thief. Her face was full of thoughts. I looked up and saw that the infidelity rate above her head had gone from 83% to 96%, and it was glowing red, blindingly so. I pretended not to notice, but inside I was cold. I knew that she was only one opportunity away from cheating. A dry piece of wood and a spark will start a fire. What would you do if your wife was about to cheat? Buy arsenic or a machete? 2. After dinner was ready, Lu Shirhan was holding a rice bowl and eating in small bites, but her mind was clearly not on the food. I pretended to be casual and jokingly said, "Honey, when I got home just now, you were sitting there, neither standing nor sitting, like a mouse in front of a cat. Could it be that you've done something to upset me behind my back?" Hearing this, I could see LV Shirhan's body tremble violently. She almost dropped the bowl, clearly shocked. Because her mind was full of that pretty boy. She felt guilty. Lu Shirhan stammered and pretended to be calm, saying, "No. No, honey, you've been acting more and more outrageously lately, and you're even joking with me like this." She gave me a reproachful glare, but the trembling bowl showed that she wasn't really at peace. It was just a joke, why such a big reaction? I laughed, and then deliberately told her a little story. Honey, I heard from a friend today that he has a female employee under him who was originally very obedient, gentle, and virtuous, but unexpectedly she cheated on him. Her husband was furious and rushed to the company with a pig slaughtering knife, slashing the woman more than 10 times. There was blood all over the floor. In the end, although the woman's life was saved, her face was completely disfigured, she became disabled for life, and she could never be a mother again. Alas, just because of cheating, the woman had to pay such a high price. It really isn't worth it. I wonder if the woman, when she is sitting in a wheelchair for the rest of her life, will regret her initial impulse. After listening to this, Lu Shirhan's face instantly turned pale, and the bowl fell directly to the ground. And the cheating rate on her head was also changing wildly. 96%. 63%. 22%. 1%. I pretended to be concerned and asked, "Honey, what's wrong? Were you shocked by this?" Lu Shirhan was so flustered that she didn't dare look at my face. She stammered, yes, this is really shocking, right, why did you suddenly tell me such a shocking thing?" As she spoke, she looked up at me, hoping guiltily to read something in my expression. I laughed and said, "Usually we just chat about flowers and moonlight, but today we're having a little excitement. Are you overthinking things?" L.V. Shirhan stammered, "No, I'm not overthinking things. I just didn't react right away." Then she quickly finished eating and went back to her room. I picked up a vegetable, lightly curled it between my fingers, and sneered. I told this story to give her a little nudge and as a final warning. After all, I still have deep feelings for her. If it can be redeemed, I should try, but if the other person is determined to go their own way, then it's not my fault. At least I've done my best. In the next few days, L.V. Shirhan really did behave more honestly, and was as gentle and virtuous as before towards me. Perhaps she really was scared by my bloody story. However, until my mother-in-law's series of provocative actions, all of this affection would cease to exist at that moment. 3. That afternoon, L.V. Shirhan called me. "Honey, order takeout tonight, I'm going back to my mom's." "Going back to your mom's?" I wondered, what's wrong with your mom? "Do you want me to go with you?" "No, there's nothing wrong with my mom's, I just want to go back and see her. Besides, you have work to do, you don't need to accompany me. But I really do have some things to do at the office right now, and I really can't get away, so I thought I'd just pick her up after work." As soon as I finished work, I drove in the direction of my mother-in-law's house. After more than 2 hours, I arrived at my mother-in-law's house. When my mother-in-law saw me, she frowned and said with disgust, "Why are you here?" I was used to her attitude, so although I felt uncomfortable, I endured it. Shirhan was so anxious to come back that I was worried something had happened to her, so I hurried over to see if there was anything I could do to help. "By the way, hasn't Shirhan come back yet? Where is she?" I knew my mother-in-law's temper well, so I finished speaking in one breath and got straight to the point, not wanting to argue with her. To my surprise, my mother-in-law acted very impatiently and said directly, "Shirhan has already gone home a long time ago. I just twisted my ankle a little, it's not a big deal, so why did you come back? But, you didn't even bring me a gift when you came to my house, what's wrong with you? Is this any way to behave as a son-in-law? And, since I twisted my ankle, hurry up and transfer me 20,000 yuan so I can buy some tonics to help me recover." Then he took out his phone and opened the QR code for payment, all in one go. This really annoyed me. Every time he comes to my mother's house, he asks for money for various reasons, from 1,000 to tens of thousands of yuan, and he is always so righteous. Although it is right to respect your elders, I am not poor, but this is like being robbed, who would like that? It seems that all the good you have done for me over the past few years has made you arrogant, hasn't it? You think I'm in your debt because I married your daughter, don't you? The more I thought about it, the angrier I got, but there was nothing I could do. In the end, I gave it to her. If I didn't, she would have let me go anyway, but it would just make me feel uncomfortable and waste my time. After receiving the money, my mother-in-law beamed from ear to ear. She didn't even look at me and went straight into the house, slamming the door behind her. Her feet were moving so fast, it looked like she hadn't even sprained her ankle. Seeing this scene, my expression gradually became cold. Obviously, she hadn't sprained her ankle. What the hell were they up to? With these doubts, I drove home, arriving at almost 11 p.m. When I opened the door, LV Shirhan was sound asleep on the bed, a sweet smile on her face, but exhaustion clearly written on her forehead. I looked up at the top of her head, and my pupils suddenly constricted. The number on the top of her head had changed from a percentage to a real number. 4. This single number no longer represents the rate of infidelity, but the number of times of infidelity. 4 times in one night. I thought that if I chose a wife with a low rate of infidelity, I could prevent this from happening. It seems that what should happen will still happen, and a temporary rate of infidelity does not mean a subsequent rate of infidelity. And I have a feeling that LV Shirhan must have colluded with my mother-in-law this time. Tricking me into going back to her parents' house was just a simple cover-up for her to cheat on me. She thought she had done a perfect job, but she didn't know that the numbers above her head had already betrayed her. LV Shirhan, since you have done something to hurt me, don't blame me for being ruthless. 4. Afterwards, I went to work as normal, as if nothing had happened, and went home to carry on with my romantic musings as usual. LV Shirhan also acted as if nothing had happened, without the slightest hint of remorse. In fact, LV Shirhan could no longer hold back. Because next to the bright red 4 above her head was a new percentage. 99%. This means that she wants to cheat again, well, more than once, and the time for cheating may be tonight. No man can tolerate his wife cheating on him, and neither can I, but this time I let it go. The first time I was cuckolded, it was because I was careless and didn't stop it. This time, I was cuckolded again to achieve a result. I secretly hired a private detective to help me investigate, and at the same time, I wanted to see who was actually covering for her this time. Sure enough, this time it was her younger brother, Lu Shukuan, who called me while he was still at work. Good guy, the whole family is in it together, right? These backstabbers, eating my food, wearing my clothes, and using my things, and then treating me like this in the end, it's just chilling. Uncultivated white-eyed wolves are no better. Facing such a request, naturally I couldn't refuse. I could wait for Lu Shirhan's cheating photos to be sent to my phone. That's living proof. My brother-in-law and his mother are the same, crazy about milking me for all I'm worth. I accompanied my brother-in-law in a perfunctory manner until 2 a.m., when I finally returned home. My wife was already fast asleep. But the number on the ceiling had changed from 4 to 7. Goodness, did you have it 3 times? At that moment, my phone rang. It was the private detective. He also sent me 2 files, which were labeled First Infidelity and Second Infidelity. Both files contained a large stack of photos and several videos. When I saw the face of the men in the photos, I was momentarily taken aback, but then I let out a sneer. I never thought it would be you, no wonder you can charm my wife so much. In that case, you two better get ready for my revenge. 5. This man is called Li Zai, a middle manager in my finance department. He is 4 years older than me and very handsome, with a group of fans in the company. He was originally a popular candidate for the position of financial director. As long as he did a good job and made no mistakes, he would have that position in a few years. But he never expected it. I previously relied on the skill of being able to see the infidelity rate, and I manipulated things behind the scenes, directly pushing the original financial director from power. Coupled with the leverage I had in my hands, naturally I intercepted his position as financial director and became the only person in the company's history to become financial director at the age of 25. Unexpectedly, he harbored a grudge because of this, and directly targeted my wife, and even gave me such a big green hat. I flipped through the first file, and as it turned out, I was right. At that time, LV Shirhan had not gone back to her parents' house at all, but instead had gone to a very high-end couples hotel in the city with Li Zai and had a great time. She said she went back to her parents' house just as a cover-up under the pretext, and she had colluded with her mother-in-law early on. The second file, which is today, is still the same hotel. Looking at LV Shirhan's smiling and cooperative appearance, I was furious, especially Li Zai, who looked like he was taking revenge, his hideous expression showing his immense glee. But someone as ambitious as him surely didn't just want to cuckold me. Through the video recording, I finally understood his purpose. Shirhan, if you really love me, do me a favor and steal your husband's and return it after I'm done with it. Once I'm the CFO, you can take charge of the family finances and spend as much as you like, without having to rely on your heartless husband to support you like a kept woman. Okay, brotherly, I'll do whatever you say. You're so nice. I sneered, not expecting that he would do it for the U-disk I had stored with the company's financial data. As long as I have that U-disk, no matter how he operates, he will not let me stay in this company, and I may even face the risk of losing everything or even going to jail. And Lu Shirhan is also a brain-dead fool, enchanting you with just a handsome face. He is so stupid as a pig that he doesn't even know that he is being used as a gun. So I played along with her plan and, while she was away, secretly installed a camera in her room. A few days ago, there was nothing wrong, except that the number above LV Shirhan's had slowly changed from 7 to 13. Then one weekend, while I was asleep, LV Shirhan secretly rummaged through my briefcase like a thief. After finding the U-Shield, she was secretly delighted and put a fake U-Shield in my briefcase instead. If there weren't any surveillance cameras, I would have really thought that her fake U-Shield was my U-Shield. After the U-Shield was stolen, LV Shirhan returned it to me the next day, thinking that she had done a perfect job. Little did she know that my surveillance cameras had seen everything. I opened the system and saw that, hey, 20 million yuan had disappeared and been transferred to an overseas account. It seems that this was an attempt to create the illusion that I had embezzled public funds. Fine, if you want to play, I'll play along. 6. It takes time to discover that public funds have been embezzled. Lisa hasn't made any moves yet, but my mother-in-law and her family have actually come directly to my door. My mother-in-law didn't have a smile on her face, and my brother-in-law was playing with his phone the whole time. He didn't even say hello when he saw me, and he just walked straight into my house, then took off his shoes and lay down on my sofa. It was as if he was at home, and the strong smell of his feet made me frown. His mother-in-law was the same, uninviting. She sat cross-legged on the sofa without taking off her shoes, and then came straight to the point. Shukuin's girlfriend has been with him for a long time, and it's time to get married. That girl is from the city, so they can't live in the countryside with an old woman like me. So you should pay for Shukuin to buy a villa in the city, something similar to yours, and a Maybach, which Shukuin has been talking about recently. You should also buy him one, so that he will have face when they get married. The bride price of 500,000 yuan cannot be less. Although Shukuin is working, the job you found for him is not very good, with a monthly salary of just a little over 10,000 yuan. He also has to date his girlfriend and so on, and he can't save much money. So I'm leaving it all to you, and don't leave anything out. It's like giving an order, and I'm not allowed to refuse. Looking at her greedy face, I gave a cold smile. Ever since marrying Shirhan Lu, I have loved her family as well, and I have given them many expensive gifts during the Chinese New Year and other holidays. Now that I have built them a house and found them a job that pays over 10,000 yuan a month, and I have even bought Lu Shikuan a car, I never thought that this would not be enough, and they have become even greedier. My mother-in-law, who was originally skinny, has now put on weight. Originally, I didn't care because of LV Shirhan's face. After all, I can fully support her with my abilities, but now it's different. They conspired together to cheat me and still want to make a profit off me. They're dreaming. Mom, you can't be so greedy, can you? It's just a marriage, why does it cost so much? My mother-in-law's face changed, angrily saying, what? I don't have any say anymore, is that it? You're successful now, and you're not willing to give your brother-in-law this little bit of money. My brother-in-law was also unhappy all of a sudden, his eyes full of disdain. Brother-in-law, you're the CFO now, earning millions a year, don't be so stingy. Lu Shirhan also hurriedly said, yes, honey, with your abilities, it won't take long to earn it all back. I only have this one younger brother, so please do it for me. Facing their greedy gaze, I only said 2 words. I have no money. After hearing this, my mother-in-law smashed her teacup to pieces. Shirhan. This is the good husband you found. Now he doesn't even listen to me. He's really turned the world upside down. If I had known you were such an ungrateful person, I shouldn't have married you to such an asshole in the first place. My brother-in-law looked at me with disgust and even hatred. Zhang Long, you are not worthy to be my brother-in-law. How much can a villa and a Maybach cost you? I can see that you don't love my sister anymore. LV Shirhan looked at me pitifully, her eyes red and tears threatening to fall at any moment. In their eyes, I have been good to LV Shirhan for many years, almost always giving her what she wants, and they think that I absolutely love her dearly. As long as I make an issue of LV Shirhan, they think that I will definitely agree to their conditions without any conditions. But they are wrong. In my heart, I treat others well if they treat me well, and if others let me down, I won't go easy on them. After all, as the old saying goes, how can you repay kindness with hatred? This is the philosophy I have always believed in. But since you are so greedy, you will have to bear the cost of your greed. Okay, I promise. 7. Really, really. You said it, you mustn't go back on your word. My brother-in-law's eyes revealed his excitement. I nodded and smiled, of course it's true. You are my wife's brother, my brother-in-law, and I would do anything for her. Lu Shirhan embraced me with a face full of emotion, but the 93% infidelity rate above his head did not change at all, and it was obvious that he was just pretending. My mother-in-law could no longer contain her joy, but still put on a stern face and said with authority, "That's more like it. If you can't even do this little thing, then don't even think about being my son-in-law." Watching their insatiable gluttonous appearance, I sneered inwardly, and then a helpless wry smile appeared on my face. It's just that because the company's finances have a little problem, I really can't afford to pay right now. My brother-in-law's smile suddenly stopped, and then he angrily grabbed my collar. "You're fucking with me." I hurriedly explained, No, you've got it wrong. It's like this, there was a small loophole in the company accounts, and in order to make up for it, I used all the money I had. It will take at least a week for the finances to be back on track, and by then not only will I be able to withdraw all my money, I'll also have a generous bonus. Buying a villa and a car will be a piece of cake. So what I mean is, apart from the bride price, you can use the rest to pay the down payment for the car and villa you like. When my money arrives, I will immediately pay the balance. What do you think? My brother-in-law thought it made a lot of sense after hearing this. The mother-in-law said, "But the down payment is quite a lot of money, and we don't have that kind of money." I laughed coldly to myself and revealed my ultimate goal. "Well, I can't help you with that, but you can take out a loan. There are so many online loans, and there are also bank mortgages and so on, where you mortgage the house to the bank. Use that money to pay the down payment, and I'll pay back all the loans when the time comes." If it were anyone else, they would definitely realize that there is a problem, but these insatiable people are different. They think that I simply cannot live without LV Shirhan. With just a little manipulation, they can completely control me. Just like the online liquors, they can't get enough of a little sweetness, and they think about it day and night with a little bitterness. They think that I am just like that. Because what I have done over the years is really like that. Seeing that they agreed, and in order to prevent any changes, I took them to look at a car and a house as soon as possible. My brother-in-law was absolutely satisfied, but when he heard the salesperson say that someone else was also very satisfied with the car and house today and had left their phone number to be contacted tomorrow, he thought that they might want it too. On hearing this, my brother-in-law panicked, because both the car and the house were a long way from his aesthetic taste, so he couldn't wait to get a loan. Little did they know that the salesperson had already been bribed by me. Subsequently, my brother-in-law and mother-in-law went crazy borrowing money online, and they didn't even let go of the pure high-interest loans with a monthly interest rate of 10 points. In their opinion, money that can be paid back in a week is the same as borrowing an ordinary loan. After borrowing the loan, they wanted to mortgage their house and car, so they went directly to the bank and, after scraping together everything they could, finally got the down payment together. They were overjoyed, but little did they know that this was the beginning of their nightmare. 8. The next day at work, Li Zai approached me with a swagger, saying triumphantly, "Zhang Long, no one has ever been able to take something away from me, and you are the first. But soon, your position as CFO will soon be mine." I looked at him like I was looking at a jumping clown, unruffled, and said, "Oh. Really? Then you will be disappointed. Even if you use every trick in the book, you will never get my job." Li Zai's handsome face gradually turned fierce. "Zhang Long, it seems you still don't believe it, but it doesn't matter, we'll just have to wait and see. And, this time, it was really thanks to your wife that I got this opportunity today, and it wasn't in vain that I used every trick in bed to make her cry for help. The wife of the CFO really is different." Li Zai wanted to see something on my face, but I was always calm, and I didn't even look at him directly, which made him feel like he had punched a bag of cotton and made him angry. At this time, the boss called everyone in the upper echelons to an emergency meeting. Li Zai suddenly laughed and mocked, "Zhang Long, get ready to go to prison. Although I am already married, I will take care of your wife when I have time." Ha 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 ha. When I entered the meeting room, the boss saw me and angrily threw a stack of documents in my face, cursing. "Zhang Long. Can you explain to me why the company's financial background has suddenly lost a whole 20 million yuan for no reason?" Everyone looked at me in shock. The CFO has control of the entire company's finances, and no one else except the boss can access it, because only the boss and the CFO know the password to unlock the financial data stored in the safe. With so much money suddenly missing from the accounts, it must be the financial director who has embezzled public funds. 20 million, how dare you? This is illegal and you will go to jail. I calmly said, Boss, can you give me a little time to wait for a few people to explain for me? Boss Ma was furious. I want to see who it is. If you can't explain it, you're going to jail. 10 minutes passed, and 4 or 5 policemen firmly took control of Li Zai. Li Zai, you are suspected of illegally embezzling a huge amount of public funds and framing someone. We are now formally arresting you. Ma's people were stunned. Wasn't it Zhang Long who embezzled public funds? How did it become Li Zai? Li Zai was scared straight and explained in a panic, it wasn't me, it wasn't me, it was Zhang Long. It was Zhang Long. You've arrested the wrong person. Yudun has always been on Zhang Long's person, and only he knows the password. I'm just a small supervisor, how could I have moved the public funds? And framing? It was obviously him who framed me, how could it be that I framed him? Comrade policeman, you must get this straight. I gave a cold smile and pulled out a recording. After listening to it, Li Zai's face instantly turned pale. I said leisurely, I have more than just this piece of evidence. I've already sent the rest to the police comrades. The content is relatively private, so I won't disclose it. I looked at Li Zai indifferently and said, Li Zai, do you think you've done everything perfectly? Little did you know that everything is under my control. Do you know what you look like to me? Just a little clown, not even worth mentioning. To be honest, I've never taken you seriously as a competitor. You're not worthy. As for the public funds you embezzled, well, let's just say your family fortune will be confiscated. After hearing my words, Li Zai trembled all over, so scared that he couldn't even stand up straight. In the end, he was dragged away by the police, his face full of despair. I looked back at Boss Ma, smiling wryly, and when they dispersed, I quietly walked up to him. Boss Ma, you don't want your wife and others to know about your affair, do you? Boss Ma looked at me like he'd seen a ghost. After that, I thrived at the company and my position became even more secure. 9. After dealing with Li Zai, it was now Lu Shihan's turn. I didn't expose him on the spot before because I was afraid of alerting the snake. Now that Li Zai is in prison, I have no worries. I immediately sent her a court summons. LV Shihan's face instantly turned pale, and her mother-in-law Zhang Fengxiao let out a thunderous rage, her fat face crammed together as she rushed directly in front of me and cursed. Zhang Long. You bastard. You heartless piece of shit. What did Shihan ever do to you? How could you treat her like this? And you want to divorce her with a court summons? If you don't tell me what's going on, I'm not finished with you. She raised her hand and tried to slap me. I laughed coldly and kicked her directly to the ground. Zhang Fengxian gnashed her teeth and fell to the ground, wailing in pain. Mom. Lu Shihan hurriedly went up. And Lu Shikuan even wanted to fight with me. Before he could make a move, I slapped him directly and sent him to the ground. I rubbed my hand and said indifferently, to be honest, I have long looked down on you. If it weren't for the fact that I thought you were Lu Shihan's mother and younger brother, do you think I would treat you nicely? You have been greedy for many years and have taken advantage of me for your own gain. You know it in your hearts. You call me heartless and ungrateful, but honestly, you are worse. I looked at Lu Shihan and said coldly, Lu Shihan, the word divorce is still a bit too nice. It would be more appropriate to say that I divorced you. Why? Because you were unfaithful to your husband and helped your lover against me. I gave you a chance once. The story 2 weeks ago was my final warning to you. If you had just stopped, I would have let it go and even stayed with you until the end. But I never expected that you would betray me after all. Zhang Fengxia retorted angrily, nonsense. I think you deliberately did this because you have someone else. Shihan is gentle and virtuous, a proper wife and mother, how could she be such a despicable person? If you're so capable, then produce the evidence. She was gambling, betting that I would not have any evidence. As long as there was no evidence, then none of this would count. I laughed coldly, Zhang Fengxia, you are really pitifully stupid. If I didn't have evidence, would I go to court to sue? I threw the photos in her face, the images were very unbecoming. LV Shihan had originally still held onto a glimmer of hope, but after seeing the photos, she directly collapsed onto the ground, face down in despair. Seeing this, Zhang Fengxia hurriedly crumpled the photos into a ball and stuffed them in her mouth, trying to destroy the evidence. In her opinion, my evidence was just these photos. After watching her spit out the photos with difficulty, I mocked her, finished. I still have some here, do you want them? I pulled out a thick stack of them. Zhang Fengxia was almost furious. After a long while, Zhang Fengxia said, "Fine, Shirhan, let's get a divorce. We're not afraid of him. After all, he only has half of your wealth, and with your looks, you can definitely find another rich husband." Lu Shikuan said, "That's right, sister, don't be sad. Besides, he still has the villa, the balance on the Maybach, and the loans that he hasn't paid off for us yet. By then, we'll still be millionaires, and we won't have to look at his face." Lu Shirhan also reacted instantly when she heard this. Yes. His assets are considered joint assets of the couple, and I should get half of them. And there are still so many debts that haven't been paid off for us, so why should we have to look at his face? By then, with so much money, not to mention finding a golden husband, we can even support a young hottie. For a moment, she suddenly became arrogant, and the infidelity rate above her head kept flashing. I almost laughed at their words, the final payment for the villa. The loan shark you borrowed from. Why should I pay for what you owe? Zhang Fengxia sneered, "You said it yourself at the time, you can't deny it now, can you?" I sneered, "Oh. Who can prove it to you? Whether it's the loan or the down payment, it was all borrowed and advanced in your name, not mine, and you want me to pay it back. Are you kidding?" They then realized that I had tricked them. Zhang Fengxia cursed, "Zhang Long, you bastard." I shook my head, "Well, you are the bastards. You insatiable people deserve this fate. As for the division of property, 99% of my property belongs to premarital property. You're thinking too much if you want half of it. All you can get is half of that 1%. I've done the math for you. It's probably about 100,000 yuan. You shouldn't even have enough of that to pay off your loans, should you?" Ha 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 ha. What? LV Shirhan's eyes were filled with disbelief. Her mother-in-law was so angry that her blood pressure shot up and she fainted. Finally, the day of the court's verdict arrived. With the evidence overwhelming, Lu Shirhan was forced to dissolve the marriage with me. As for property issues, she was only able to get half of 1% of my property, because the rest was all premarital property. As for the loans they borrowed and the down payments they made, there was no direct evidence proving that I needed to help them repay them, so they were deemed invalid. They just collapsed. After leaving the court, Lu Shirhan rushed over directly, embraced me tightly, and burst into tears. "Hubby, I'm sorry, I was wrong, I really was wrong. I was just fooled by Li Zai's sweet words. I just made a mistake that every woman would make. Forgive me, hubby. I promise, I will love you for the rest of my life, be loyal to you for the rest of my life, do whatever you tell me to do, and I will never contact anyone other than you again." I looked at her coldly as the numbers above my head fell madly, but it no longer mattered. One infidelity is enough for life. There is no way I will forgive her. My mother-in-law and her family also knelt before me, crying and begging for forgiveness, regret written all over their faces. In the final analysis, they just regret not having me, a golden son-in-law, to provide for their extravagant lifestyles. And from now on, they will all be stuck in endless debt. I slammed the door on her, and I didn't care about Zhang Fengxia and Lu Shikuan, who were kneeling on the ground, begging for mercy. I just walked away and had nothing more to do with them. After losing me as a wealthy husband, the quality of life of Zhang Fengxia's family plummeted. They used to eat big meals with big portions of meat, but now they can't even afford to eat porridge with pickles. Because they face various debt collection every day, especially loan sharks, they are often threatened and intimidated. Some even come directly to the door to demand money, looting the family of all their previous possessions. Soon after, because they had no money to repay the loan, the house was repossessed by the local bank. Because they usually flaunted their presence in the village because of my presence and were used to being arrogant, no one was willing to help them. Lu Shirhan. If you weren't bewitched by that wild man, how could we have ended up like this? Su Kuan lost his job and his girlfriend ran away, and all our family's belongings were gone. It's all your fault. It's all your fault. You're a bad woman. You're not worthy of being my daughter. I will never forgive you in death. Finally, after Zhang Fengxia finished saying this, she suddenly had a cerebral hemorrhage and died without closure. LV Shirhan was extremely remorseful and in tears. Now she was pale and skinny, wearing ragged clothes. Her former beauty was gone, and even if she became a prostitute, no one would be willing to buy it. She curled up under the bridge, thinking about how I used to treat her well, and she was overcome with grief, crying until she could hardly breathe. But there is no such thing as a remedy for regret in this world, and she will eventually pay the price for what she has done. As for me, I have no time to worry about how they are doing. Anyway, I am now living a life of luxury, with a successful career. I have succeeded in taking over the company. That financial company officially belongs to me. A true success story. The end.